number one issue you're hearing from real people across Wisconsin right now?
Really, honestly, in terms of right now, I don't care where I am in all 72 counties. I hear about housing and childcare. I don't care if it's
Really? Yeah.
urban. I don't care if it's rural. I don't care if it's tribal land, suburban. Housing and childcare are just critical needs for Wisconsinites right now. And they want the government to be able to put solutions for us to solve it. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm looking to do is to make real demonstrable change in Wisconsin and actually help everyday Wisconsinites be able not just to survive day to day, but to thrive, to make sure they have food on the table, a roof over their heads. And yes, they can take their kids on vacation once a year.
Or we appreciate her making time for us in the state of Wisconsin on this Veterans Day. Wisconsin's Lieutenant Governor, Sara Rodriguez, joining us here in studio. We love it when that happens. Lieutenant Governor, thanks for coming on, and happy Veterans Day to everyone.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, and we talk about this. We were talking to Terry Barr, our colleague here, just before the story of this guy. And for those not watching on the stream, I brought up to the Lieutenant Governor, I said, have you heard of this guy, Harvey Higley? And she said, oh, that's the guy that went from Armistice to Veterans Day. This is why she's a Lieutenant Governor, you understand? So you've heard about this guy.
I did. I have heard about him. I can't remember where I learned it from. Maybe it was school. Maybe it's a good Wisconsin education.
A public education,
Yeah.
right? So the quick question is, and we talked about this with Terry, Wisconsin's the only state in the union that doesn't recognize Veterans Day as a state holiday. Can we get that changed?
Yes. Yes,
Right?
we should get it changed. Absolutely. Yes, we
I'm
should
all
get
for
it
the
changed.
state muffin and all that,
Yeah.
but shouldn't we be doing this first?
I know. There's many things that I think we can do to honor our veterans in the state of Wisconsin, and that is one of the things that we should be able to do.
You said you came from one of your favorite events earlier of the year. One of the things you get to do as Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah.
Tell us what that is.
So I went to a Veterans Day event, and the gentleman who put it on, Mr. Otto, is 93 years old, and he is a veteran, and he's been doing it at this school for over 25 years. Every year, he has been putting on this amazing Veterans Day event. So the kids sing songs, he invites veterans from the community in, and the kids make gifts for the veterans, and then they have different speakers come in, and I've been able to do it the last 3 years in a row. I would never, ever want to disappoint Mr. Otto. Absolutely not.
But isn't that one of the cool things? Because I remember being in middle school and particularly high school in Richland Center, and we would have these school assemblies.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have, at that time, back in the 80s, we still had, World War I and II veterans
Yeah.
up there.
Mhm.
And now, certainly not World War I, but even our World War II veterans are getting scarce. But for the younger generations to appreciate the sacrifices made by the men and women, I think that's so important.
I absolutely think it's still important. And it's personal for me. My dad served in the Navy during Vietnam, came home, fixed telephones for Wisconsin Bell, but his service was so important to him. He was post commander of his American Legion post. I kind of joke, I knew more about flag protocol at 8 years old than any child should possibly know. But yeah, he was also on the honor guard for military funerals. I mean, this was service and sacrifice was really, really important to him.
According to Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs, there are approximately 331,340 veterans in the state of Wisconsin, makes up about 7.4% of the state's adult population. That's from World War II until now. Again, there's veterans in the state dealing with homelessness or housing problems. What should the state be doing if you were governor in a future Rodriguez administration? What would be your goals to helping Wisconsin's veterans?
So right now, even the budget we have right now, there were about $500 million in investments into veterans, whether that's housing, healthcare, some of the veterans' homes that we were able to keep funded. But we need to do more. We also need to make sure that we have mental health funding for veterans. We know that when they come back into coming back into civilian life, it can be a really difficult transition for them. So trying to make sure they have the resources that they need to get jobs, that we are able to have programs that acknowledge the skills that they've been able to get within the military, and how does that transfer into civilian life. We've been working with a couple of different philanthropies who are trying to make sure that we can have military veterans become nurses. We know that there's a huge need for nurses in the state of Wisconsin, and you've got individuals who have a skill set from the military. Why can't they apply some of that into a bachelor's degree in nursing?
100%. As my aunt was a longtime OBGYN nurse here at St. Mary's in Madison, so I have a special place for registered nurses, of which you are one. Maybe
I
to
am.
me today, no offense, but the most important title you bring to the show today is not lieutenant governor, but that of registered nurse.
Yeah.
And I know that I've had texts from people already today saying, I want to listen into this
Hmm.
because of the goofiness, my words, happening in Washington, D.C., with the government shutdown, largely the Republicans not wanting to find a solution forward. But now Democrats were holding out to try to get an extension of tax credits for the Affordable Care Act,
Hmm.
better known as Obamacare. Now it seems like there was 8 Democrats that said we're moving forward without that. U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin put a bill or a motion on the floor yesterday to extend it for 1 year. That got shot down.
Hmm.
And as you well know, Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez, there's a lot of apprehension. I heard from one person today who I know
Hmm.
who is on the Affordable Care Act. He said, Todd, I know it's sitting in my inbox. I'm scared to look at what it's going to go up to.
Yeah.
What would you say to people across the state? What should they do at this point?
It was so disappointing and frustrating for me. I did put a statement out about it that I really think that they should have held the Republicans' feet to the fire to make sure that these subsidies were going to continue, because you're looking at 100% increase. They're doubling their premiums on the marketplace. And these are small business owners. These are independent contractors. These are folks who aren't getting their insurance through their employer. And they're going to have to pay so much more money that many of them are going to choose to go without health insurance. And if you think that does not affect you and me, who may be on a commercial plan through our employer, it absolutely does. Because when we have less people insured, they're going to go to the emergency department when they're way sicker than they need to be. And those costs are going to be borne by everybody across the state. So it is going to be increasing healthcare costs for every single person in Wisconsin if they do not make sure that those subsidies continue to exist.
And you and I would probably see mostly eye to eye on the politics of this. But I think for most Wisconsinites, from what I'm hearing, as you travel around the state, now you've been traveling around the state running for governor next year, I think the average gal and guy would be like, I don't care. This is why I'm sick of politics. Nothing gets done, but I got to figure out my health care for this year. As a registered nurse who works with this every day, I know you're not giving people legal advice, but what's your best advice as a nurse, as lieutenant governor of the state? The reality is, it is what it is. These premiums probably aren't going to change now. What can people do to afford health care in this state?
It's going to be a huge problem for folks. And I do think that they need to call their federal representatives to let them know how much this is going to hurt their families. I would caution people not to go without health insurance, because you never know if you're going to have that accident. You never know what's going to be happening in the future. And you want to make sure that you are being taken care of for your chronic conditions so they don't become more serious later and cost a whole lot more. There are clinics out there that will work with you on a sliding scale fee. There's federally qualified health centers within most parts of the states of Wisconsin. So if people are struggling to be able to afford what they need, working with those health centers is something that they can do as well. But the reality is that this is a failure of the Republican leadership in the federal government to not extend these subsidies. It is an absolute failure. And it not only is going to affect people's health care, but it's going to affect the economy in the state of Wisconsin. So if you think about it, if you're not taking care of your diabetes, if you're not taking care of your high blood pressure, are you going to be able to work 40 hours a week? Are you going to be able to do what you need to do to support your family? So these are going to be all, I know it feels like it's just about healthcare, but these are pillars that are holding up our community. And we knock one of those over, the other pillars are going to fall.
We're talking to Wisconsin's Lieutenant Governor Sara Rodriguez. She also happens to be running for governor next year. We're going to get to the campaign here in a bit, but I want to talk a little bit more about this Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, in the state of Wisconsin. Last time I checked, and Bob Lang is the head of the Fiscal Bureau of the state of Wisconsin, nonpartisan fiscal. I haven't talked to Bob lately. Last I knew, the state still had around a $4 billion-ish surplus. I think some Wisconsinites are saying, okay, why doesn't Governor Evers do something? I know this is a feeling out here because they see Trump do this all the time or do things they signed. Why doesn't the governor sign an executive order to take part of that $4 billion and make up the difference for Obamacare in Wisconsin?
So unfortunately, he doesn't have that ability
Right.
to be able to do that. So we have a Republican-led Senate, a Republican-led Assembly, and they were even unwilling to go into that surplus when we were looking at people not having their food share benefits, where we were taking literal food out of children's mouths this last month, and they didn't even want to use the dollars for that. So that's upsetting to me that they wouldn't want to support their own constituents who may need SNAP benefits. It's called food share here in Wisconsin. It's a huge challenge for the governor, and to have a hostile legislature that's uninterested in helping everyday people afford the things they need to be able to thrive or even just survive.
I appreciate it because thanks for explaining that. I knew it, but I wanted to have people hear it from you because of all the misinformation out there. I think there are people in the state who really believe because they see Trump do it on the news that Governor Evers can do this. He doesn't have the legal power to do these executive orders here in the state of Wisconsin.
He does not. He does not have the power to pull from that surplus without the legislation from the legislature.
A couple of minutes left here before we step away, but I know you're with us to the top of the hour. Explain to people, because this gets so confusing to Wisconsinites, Badger Care versus Obamacare, or Badger Care versus Affordable Care Act.
So Badger Care is Medicaid in the state of Wisconsin. And the people who are on Medicaid have to meet some income limits to be able to qualify for it. Vast majority of people on Medicaid are kids and older adults who perhaps are in a nursing home. My father, I talked to you about him, Vietnam veteran, worked every day of his life, worked the Friday before he got diagnosed with Alzheimer's on a Monday. He was on Medicaid at the end of his life. And it was such a blessing for our family not to have to worry about those costs. So when you're talking about people who are on Badger Care or Medicaid, these are folks who really need it. They need to be able to access this health care. Again, vast majority are kids and older adults. So that's Medicaid or Badger Care. And then you've got the Affordable Care Act, where we have insurance that you can get on the exchange. And so you're able to get on the exchange and get your insurance yourself if you're not getting it through your employer or you don't qualify for Medicaid. But they will push you towards Badger Care or Medicaid if you do qualify for it. So you're talking about independent booksellers, you're talking about restaurant owners, you're talking about, people who have small businesses and need to cover themselves. I mean, those are the folks who are using the Affordable Care Act and getting subsidies to be able to afford their premiums. The one thing we have not done in the state of Wisconsin is expanded Medicaid. And that's about 90,000 people, about 60,000 who are probably 30,000 who are uninsured today.
Which most of the other states in this country have done.
All of them except 10.
All right. We're going to talk more about the Lieutenant Governor had on my ratty wallet.
Yeah.
I have a forward health card not too many years ago. I used this. Otherwise, I would not have health care in the state of Wisconsin.
Right.
Come back and talk about that. And also the Lieutenant Governor's bid to become the governor of the state of Wisconsin. We'll be back after this. But first, the theme from the United States Coast Guard on this Veterans Day 2025. You're listening to the Todd Albaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Welcome back to the Todd Albaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network on this Veterans Day, November 11th, 2025. Now 7 minutes before the hour of 3 o'clock. If you're saying, what's that song? Don't worry, it's a newer one. That is the song for the United States Space Force, our newest branch of military. It's ours. I can't remember the guy. We had a guy. We were on one of the university campuses in Wisconsin. He was going into the Space Force here in Wisconsin. So
yeah, I believe so. I don't remember the name either.
Yeah, newer. We honor our veterans, all of our veterans, men and women who have worn and continue to wear the uniform. And we are delighted and honored to be joined by Wisconsin's Lieutenant Governor Sara Rodriguez here in the studio on this Veterans Day. As of course, she's running for Wisconsin governor in the 2026 Democratic primary. Lieutenant Governor, I want to just finish up on this Affordable Care Act. We are talking about Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare as it's known, and Badger Care. And I still keep this forward health card. When not very many years ago, when I had a small business, I would have been without health care if not for this safety net. So I keep it as a reminder, there by the grace of God go I.
Exactly.
And we are all going to go through times when we need assistance. Talk to us from a woman's perspective on postpartum in the state.
Yeah, so we are one of 10 states that has an overall to single adults who have low income, but we are one of only 2 states that has not expanded Medicaid for 12 months postpartum. Us and Arkansas. And Arkansas I think they're working on it, so we could be the last one. And I said this earlier, but if you want to know why leadership matters in the Assembly and the Senate passed legislation to expand 12 months postpartum with only 1 no vote. In the bill for the Assembly, the number of Democrats and Republicans who signed on to that bill, if it would have been brought to the floor, it would have passed. Robin Vos refused to bring the bill to the floor. Very frustrating. And this is why we just need different leadership.
I mean, even the Republicans in the Senate, the majority of them were on board with this.
They were. Yeah.
And so for one person to hold this entire thing up, and there are women across the state who are suffering because of one person in Robin Vos, I don't get it, but
yeah.
I'm not going to solve that
today.
To
be clear, nationally 40% of babies are born on Medicaid. So we want to make sure that those babies, those moms, have a good start in life. And that's what that 12 months postpartum can do.
I mean, Republicans are very concerned about life until it's here, until they're born, it seems like. And then it's kind of like, you're on your own. But that's a Okay. Talk to us very quickly about SNAP benefits. Yep. All the back and forth. I thought the Governor Evers had a brilliant move when there was that small legal window, when the court said, yes, the Trump administration had to release federal dollars for SNAP or food shares, it's called here in Wisconsin. The governor did it. Hours later, they said no. Now the president wants that back. Governor Evers had a one-word response. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Great response. No, absolutely. I mean, they have money to give billionaires and trillionaires tax breaks to buy their 4th yacht, but they don't have enough money to be able to fund food for children. I don't understand the logic in that. I mean, these are hungry people. These are people who need these dollars to put food on the table. We have seen our food pantries across the state seeing exponential rise in people coming, being very, very nervous about being able to afford something to eat. And that's what they're trying to do. They actually went to the court system to say, no, I don't want to fund SNAP benefits. I don't want to fund food share. I don't want to have kids have food on the table. I mean, that is just cruel.
100% agree. A shout out, though, to all of our Wisconsinites who are stepping up to help support those food pantries across the state of Wisconsin. You're running for Wisconsin governor. You are lieutenant governor.
Yes.
You're running for Wisconsin governor. Marquette Law School poll. It's too early. Nobody cares about numbers, I don't think. What people do care about is the money. You're leading the Democrats on fundraising. How is it going on the campaign trail? We've got a minute and a half left.
Yeah, it's been going really well. I'm getting a lot of positive responses. I've had endorsements in all 72 counties because I want to be a governor for the entire state. And I'm doing a listening tour in every single county in the state of Wisconsin during this primary, because I do think it's important that you can't lead unless you listen. I do think I'm the best person to try to get across the finish line this August, because I'm the best person to be able to beat Tom Tiffany in November. You know, I'm a nurse by background, but I've also been an executive within a large healthcare system and a Fortune 100 company. I do have that executive experience as well as lieutenant governor. But I also live in ruby red Waukesha and was able to flip an assembly district from red to blue. I'm the only one in the field who's been able to do that. And those are the kind of things that I want to bring to the table. And I'm going to be focusing on the economy, whether it's accessible, affordable health care. Goodness, cost of housing is out of control, particularly in Madison. It's really, really rough.
Tell me about it.
Cost of childcare, if you can even find it, if you can get it yourself off the wait list, it's like the average amount is $13,000 per year for one child. We need to fully fund our public schools so we can reduce property taxes for people, and we need to restore union bargaining rights, because that will lift wages all across Wisconsin.
And she has ties to Richland County, as I've pointed out before, which I love that about you and your candidacy as well. Very, very quickly, number one issue you're hearing from real people across Wisconsin right now?
Really, honestly, in terms of right now, I don't care where I am in all 72 counties. I hear about housing and childcare. I don't care if it's urban. I don't care if it's rural. I don't care if it's tribal land, suburban. Housing and childcare are just critical needs for Wisconsinites right now. And they want the government to be able to put solutions for us to solve it. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm looking to do, is to make real demonstrable change in Wisconsin and actually help everyday Wisconsinites be able not just to survive day to day, but to thrive, to make sure they have food on the table, a roof over their heads. And yes, they can take their kids on vacation once a year.
That was the most interesting part about the Marquette Law School poll to me, not the head-to-heads or whatever of the candidates, all due respect, the issues, what you just said, housing, childcare, the affordability issues. And I would think that would bode well for a Democratic candidate for governor. All right, Lieutenant Governor Sara Rodriguez, thanks for making time for us today, and safe travels. As you travel around Wisconsin, you're always welcome back on the show.
Thank you, Todd.